For years, landlords had it made they raised rents whenever they felt like it, rejected applicants on a whim, and treated tenants like they should be grateful just to have a roof over their heads. Meanwhile, regular people were cramming into apartments with strangers, moving back in with their parents, or signing leases that were slowly bleeding them dry. 2026 changed the game. Developers went on an absolute building spree during the pandemic boom, and all those shiny new apartments are now hitting markets that don't have enough people to fill them. Remote work let people live wherever they wanted. Inflation wore everyone down, and the renters' landlords spent years ignoring. They stopped showing up. Vacancy rates are climbing. 3 months, and waived deposits are back. Rents that jumped 30, 40, even 60% in 2 years are now heading the wrong direction for landlords. And the investors who borrowed big, bought at peak prices, and assumed the party would never end. They are sweating. Here are the 10 cities where rent is crashing hardest right now. Number 10, Austin, Texas. Austin spent several years acting like it was immune to gravity. Tech workers, venture capital, and coastal transplants flooded in from 2020 to 2023. Rents exploded, and everyone who escaped San Francisco thought they'd found paradise. That feeling is gone. Average rents have dropped 15 to 80% from the 2022 peak, one of the steepest falls in the entire Sunbelt. Mass layoffs at Tesla, Oracle, and Meta pulled thousands of well-paid workers out of the market. Remote workers either went home or moved somewhere cheaper. Luxury towers that once had waiting lists are now offering 2 or 3 months free rent plus zero security deposit just to get anyone through the door. Austin isn't collapsing, but it's a loud warning to every city that confused a migration wave with permanent demand. Number 9, Jacksonville. Florida, Jacksonville never made big headlines. It has not Miami or Orlando, and that quiet reputation made investors incredibly excited about it during the boom. Between 2020 and 2023, people fleeing South Florida's costs poured in. Rents jumped, new apartments went up everywhere. Now rents are down 10 to 12% year over year, and vacancy rates have hit levels not seen since before the pandemic. Exploding insurance costs are crushing landlord margins even as they're forced to lower rents to stay competitive. Flood risk concerns after recent storm seasons have made renters more hesitant, and wages never grew fast enough to match what rents were at their peak. For renters in Jacksonville right now, landlords are negotiating. That's a completely different world from 2 years ago. Number 8, Atlanta. Georgia. Atlanta was supposed to be the smart, balanced play. Strong job market, diverse economy, reasonable prices. Developers saw all of that and went wild with supply. More than 50,000 new apartment units came online between 2021 and 2024. That is a staggering number for any market to absorb. Average rents are now down 10 to 12% from peak. Luxury buildings that were fully leased 18 months ago have visible vacancies. Landlords are dangling free months, waived fees, and free parking perks that feel like a throwback to 2014. The affordability squeeze hit from 2 directions at once. Rents climbed fast enough to price people out. Then groceries, gas, and utilities ate through whatever financial cushion was left. The student loan payment restart hammered younger renters already stretched thin. Atlanta will stabilize faster than some cities on this list thanks to its diversified economy, but the recovery is going to take time. Number 7, Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas has always played on the edge. Big swings, dramatic reversals, and an economy completely tied to consumer spending and tourism. In 2026, the rental market is feeling all of it at once. Rents have dropped 11 to 13% from peak. Here's the kicker. When Airbnb revenues dropped, all those short-term rental properties got dumped back into the long-term rental pool, flooding a market already drowning in supply. The Strip is still generating revenue, but the hospitality workers who keep the city running are earning less than they did at peak. Tips are down. Convention attendance hasn't fully recovered. The everyday workers who make Las Vegas function were never actually earning enough to afford peak rents. They were just barely surviving until they couldn't rent anymore. Las Vegas in 2026 carries uncomfortable echoes of 2008. Number 6, Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix built more apartments per capita during the pandemic era than almost any other major city in America. The logic made sense. Families streaming in from California, companies relocating, remote workers chasing sunshine, developers went all in. Average rents have now dropped 13 to 16% from peak. Units that rented for $1,800 in 2022 are listing at $1,500 with 2 months free on top. Phoenix, built for demand. That was real, but not permanent. Migration slowed once the price gap with California narrowed enough that moving didn't feel worth the hassle. The brutal summer heat, triple digits for months, is increasingly factoring into relocation decisions. Water supply concerns are creeping into serious buyer conversations. The correction still has room to run. Number 5, Dallas. Texas. Dallas spent a decade as the economic darling of the American South. Major corporate relocations, Toyota, Goldman, Success Charles Shuapu, made it look like a city that could absorb unlimited supply. Developers believed every bit of it and built accordingly. The hangover is real. Rents are down 11 to 13% from peak. Class A vacancy is at its highest in over a decade in some corridors. Landlords, who fielded multiple applications per unit 2 years ago, are now personally calling prospective tenants and offering incentive packages that would have seemed laughable in 2022. The corporate cavalry hasn't arrived as promised. Hiring freezes slowed the flow of high-income renters. Texas property taxes are brutal and rising with nowhere to hide. Stack on elevated insurance and maintenance costs, and the math for Dallas landlords is dramatically worse than any spreadsheet predicted 3 years ago. Number 4, Tampa, Florida. Tampa's pandemic surge was fast, dramatic, and felt permanent. Tens of thousands of new residents arrived between 2020 and 2023, drawn by Florida's tax advantages and a Gulf Coast lifestyle that felt genuinely underpriced. Rents shot up. Home values followed. Then the hurricanes rewrote the story. Back-to-back storm impacts, including severe damage from hurricanes Helene and Milton in late 2024, fundamentally changed the risk equation for Tampa Bay. Insurance premiums spiked. Some carriers left Florida entirely. The cost structure for landlords changed dramatically, and so did the conversation for anyone thinking about moving there. Rents have fallen 12 to 14% from peak, with coastal areas seeing steeper drops as storm anxiety and soaring insurance costs push demand toward higher ground. Tampa has real economic anchors and isn't going anywhere. But the version people were paying 2022 prices for is not the version that exists today. Number 3, Seattle. Washington. Seattle spent a decade operating like the tech economy was a permanent force of nature. Amazon's headquarters anchored a rental market that seemed like it could only move upward. Engineers packed into South Lake Union and Bellevue. Developers built confidently, knowing supply would always find takers. In 2026, what started as a pandemic wobble has hardened into something that looks like a structural shift. Average rents are down 11 to 14% from peak. The tech layoff cycles of 2022, those 2023, and 2024 knocked out a huge chunk of the high-income renter base. Amazon's hybrid posture has weakened the gravitational pull its campus used to create. The demand corridor between South Lake Union and the east side suburbs is noticeably thinner. Landlords in premium buildings where you could get a callback a year ago are now proactively chasing prospects and offering concessions. The lesson Seattle is teaching. When a city ties its identity to one industry, it gets dragged down whenever that industry pulls back. Number 2, San Francisco, California. San Francisco's rental market in 2026 isn't just correcting, it's transforming. Average rents have fallen 17 to 20% from their 2019 peak. When you account for all the concessions, landlords are piling on to asking prices that are already lower. Downtown office vacancy remains stubbornly high. The tech worker exodus has yuan reversed. Remote work is yuan phase. For most of these people, it's the permanent plan. What makes San Francisco uniquely brutal is everything hitting at once. Rents are falling while operating costs, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, city compliance are not. Landlords who bought at peak with aggressive financing are being squeezed from both sides. Some are selling, some are converting units to other uses. A meaningful number are simply walking away. San Francisco isn't dying. Cities of its density and history don't die. But it is being permanently repriced, and that new baseline is going to reshape expectations for what ownership here can realistically deliver for a very long time. Number 1, New York City. New York was supposed to be untouchable. The city that survived every crisis and came back stronger. through 2008 through September 11th. Through the pandemic, the rental market always bounced back faster than anyone expected. In 2026, that track record is being tested like never before. Manhattan rents are down 13 to 15% from peak. In the fastest gentrified parts of Brooklyn, declines are approaching 18%. 1 to 2 months free rent is now standard in many buildings. Landlords who once required applicants to earn 40 to 45 times the monthly rent are quietly accepting 35 times, or taking cosigners they would have dismissed without a second thought 2 years ago. Finance and media have trimmed their New York footprints. International buyers have pulled back. The 2024 good cause eviction law pushed smaller landlords towards selling rather than dealing with tighter restrictions, adding inventory to a buyer pool already constrained by elevated mortgage rates. And yet New York is not crumbling. The streets are full. The culture is alive. But for the first time in a generation, tenants are sitting across the table from landlords and actually negotiating. That is historic. The bottom line. Every city on this list shares the same story. They overbuilt during artificial pandemic-driven demand, bet too heavily on one industry or demographic, and priced out the working people who are the actual backbone of any healthy rental market. For renters, 2026 is your window. Concessions are real. Landlords are flexible. And the leverage has finally shifted to your side of the table. For investors and landlords, the era of effortless passive returns is over in these markets, at least for now. What comes next requires realistic expectations and an honest look at what people can actually afford to pay. The reset is already underway, and it's not done yet.